Welcome to Red Essay Season 2. This time around, instead of hearing me flap my gums about Native events and the things that I love, you're going to hear from Natives across the country whom have demonstrated their ability to be leaders. So leaders is our theme for Red Essay Season 2, and showing the general public that Natives are leaders and they transcend that role of the victims that you often read about in history books. And we continue to pursue greatness through our Native leadership. So here's my chance to highlight some of them whom are active today, people I've had the privilege to get to know and even call my friends. These are the leaders in the political arena, leaders within their Native communities, or simply entrepreneurs, or plainly just knocking it out of the park and leading in the game of life. So without much more talk from me, here's Red Essay Season 2. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Red Essay. This week I'm really honored to have Emma Snuggs. She's been a good friend of mine for the last couple of years. She's going to be talking about UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, what it has done for her and her connection to the Cherokee people, and what we think that it could do for more students out there, hopefully listening. And this could be through a number of different community involvements. Emma happened to choose law, which I think is incredibly interesting and definitely not the easiest route, but I think it's going to be incredibly rewarding. And so she's got a lot to say and a lot to share. So without further ado, here's Emma Snuggs. Enjoy.
My name is Emma Snuggs, and I am a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. I started off in Sacramento, California, was attending community college there, and also a member of the Cherokees of Northern Central Valley, which is the satellite community there in Sacramento and the surrounding area. And I was fortunately accepted into UCLA and transferred in summer of 2012 as a junior, and was directed to the Cherokees of Los Angeles, also Tsa-La-Gi-LA, and told that there was, wonderful things happening in the community here and that I should really touch base. So I had a home away from home, so to say. And yeah, so that was, basically how I came to be in LA. Sure. I think, you hear that no one's actually from LA, so I think there may be some truth to that. Yeah. Everyone finds themselves there. And the longer you stay, the more you love it. I've also heard that, and I can say in my experience that is true.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I love seeing people's facial expressions when I say that I'm from the area. They're like, "Oh, you're the one."
Right.
Right. Cool. Okay, so new to LA, and then what was your first experiences with the Native American department there?
Well, my first initial, understanding of the department. Well, of course, up north, the same program that I'm involved in at UCLA is labeled Native American Studies in Sacramento. So, I was admitted into American Indian Studies here in Los Angeles. So it was kind of explained to me that there is a political identity, as well as cultural in the urban area. So that's where I guess the terminology or sort of interchangeable terminology comes from down here. But I can say that it was very different. Surrounded by a much younger crowd of Native people, and from all over. As far as South Dakota, as close as people who are citizens or members of the original peoples of Los Angeles County. So that was very interesting. And then, of course, sort of understanding the dynamics of tribes here in Southern California versus elsewhere, because Southern California tribes are unique in that they're much smaller and, traditionally are villages, and even referred to by anthropologists as childlets, which is sort of patronizing, but very different than being Cherokee and coming from a tribe of 312,000, sure. Right? So that was very different. But American Indian Studies professors at UCLA are known around the world for their work, and especially professors like Dwayne Champagne. He's a professor of sociology at UCLA, but also very involved in Native law and Native, American Indian government, and he actually wrote his dissertation on Southeastern nations. So he was very well-versed in Cherokee history and supportive of me and, in my goal to gain a better and meaningful understanding of my own people, whether that be, my people in Oklahoma or my people here in LA. So he really nurtured that that desire in me. So I'm very grateful for that. And of course, our entire program is very supportive, but specifically Duane Champagne. And of course, we have Clementine Bordeaux, and she's the academic coordinator for our program. And because we're an interdepartmental, she's actually the only full-time staff member in American Indian Studies there. So she kind of carries the weight of the world on her shoulders in terms of American Indian students at UCLA. She's our counselor. She's our, our academic counselor, our support system. She's the first face you see when you come to campus. And so, I was really, really blessed to run into her initially. And she actually, planned out my academic course load for the next 2 years, immediately, upon arrival, which is great. A lot of people struggle with academic coordinators, and, they're ready to leave school and they find out that they have a class or two that they missed, and they end up having to stay in an entire quarter semester. And so I don't have that issue because of her hard work. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So that sounds like an awesome environment for somebody interested in studying a little bit more about their culture, their native history. What would you recommend for somebody, say, in high school looking to go into that direction? I mean, would UCLA be a good fit, and what's that culture like?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that oftentimes we choose schools based on reputation or sports programs, et cetera. But I think UCLA is a great school, of course, with your major in mind. So if you're planning on going into American Indian Studies, absolutely. American Indian Studies is a wonderful program at UCLA. And like I said, the scholarship that's taking place, whether it's American Indian women's issues, gender issues, or law, or, and everything in between, film, culture, anything of that nature, language. The chair of our department is a linguistic anthropologist, Paul Cross-Critty. So we have such great resources at our fingertips. And we also have programs that kind of bridge the gap between high school and university. And we also have programs that bridge the gap between community college and university life at UCLA. And those programs are especially important for American Indian kids. For example, we have the American Indian Recruitment Program, which is, we refer to as AIR, right? And that's it's a project through the Community Programs Office specifically for outreach in American Indian communities with American Indian youth. And that program is being directed by Gladys, or Feruz Dukum, and she's Lakota. She actually is UCLA alum and actually participated in that program. She attended Sherman High School and worked with students that were currently at UCLA while she was in high school. So she's now kind of come full circle and is now the project director. And my best friend actually works for that program. She's Polynesian and works with American Indian students at United American Indian Involvement. And I also worked there my first year here at Central High School in United American Indian Involvement. So there's definitely some community partnership taking place there. But of course, there's also the Center for Community College Partnerships, which is directed by Vice Provost Alfred Herrera. And so he works with American Indian students who are in community college looking to transfer. So there's a lot of support there. But students, got to be willing to reach out and do the work. But yeah, absolutely. It's a great school. It's a great program, and there's a lot of room to grow, which is something that's unique about American Indian Studies in particular, is that for those of us who want to work in our communities, we're often, we're kind of stifled by other programs. But in American Indian Studies, there's room for growth and academic freedom, and also undergraduate research, which is something that isn't necessarily typical for undergraduate coursework. But because UCLA's American Indian Studies program has a community involvement aspect to it, there's an expectation to work with people, and that really prepares an undergraduate student. That student then becomes a competitive applicant for grad school, law school, medical school. So so we have the tools necessary. We just need warm bodies applying for these programs.
Sure, and I like how much influence it has in the surrounding communities. That's awesome that it really pushes kids to get involved. That's something I really only began doing my last year of college, and once I did, I thought, wow, I should have been doing this the whole time. So that's great.
I'm like, well, you're always welcome at UCLA, Brandon.
So other than, of course, your degrees, which is a huge accomplishment, what are you trying to achieve while being a student at UCLA?
Well, I'm a department scholar. So I transferred as an undergraduate as a junior and was fortunate in that, I took summer classes. I finished early and was able to take on MA work. So I'm now working on my master's thesis, and really blessed to have be able to be a part of Tsa-La-Gi LA, the Cherokees of LA community, to really tell that story. I'm as like a writer and a student, you're kind of, you feel as if you should describe it as they, but we, I'm very lucky to be on council and to be an active member of this community while also having the opportunity to tell this story through research and indigenous methodology at UCLA with the support of Duane Champagne. And so really telling the story of how the Cherokees of LA community came to be, how it was developed, how it's been maintained and nurtured throughout time, and what the future goals and hopes are for the community. Because essentially this is such a phenomenal and incredible feat for Cherokees that have relocated thousands and thousands of miles, since as early as the Trail of Tears, and what has been referred to as the second Trail of Tears, which is that migration from Oklahoma to LA and California. There are roughly 20,000 Cherokees in California, and there are believed to be between 4,000 and 5,000 Cherokee homes in Los Angeles County. And while the core members of the group may not be that large in numbers, there is a consistency. There is a continuous presence of Cherokees in Los Angeles, and that really is something worth writing about and reading and hearing and learning about. In my opinion, that presence, that Cherokee presence here in LA, that is sometimes overlooked because we may not be phenotypically, this stereotypical Indian, right? So we may not fit that bill, but yet, our authenticity is expressed by, the way we value family and how we relate to one another and how we relate to the world in a way that's very Cherokee as I understand it, and as I kind of, wade through scholarship and, become more connected with what's taking place in Tahlequah and Cherokees all over the country. I'm sort of enlightened and empowered by the Cherokees of LA, and not just the Cherokees of LA, but the spouses and in-laws and the non-Cherokee citizens or the non-citizen Cherokees that are involved in our group. Because it takes a community. It takes a community, and all of us, we're naturally a part of overlapping communities, and how we work with that, how we deal with that, and how we use that as a resource and benefit for the Cherokees in LA, versus view it as a handicap or as a disadvantage. We've really, I think, taken on this different sort of attitude towards walking in two worlds, and often more than two.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's really interesting because we are a big melting pot, especially here in LA, and there's a lot of resources, and and even if you're not a part of a certain tribe, just having that citizenship and being part of a tribe, whether it's a state tribe or a federally recognized tribe, there are definitely resources out there. You mentioned UAII. How has being in school affected your relationship with the Cherokee Nation back in Oklahoma?
I never thought that being a student at UCLA would bring me to where I am spiritually and personally, as far as the Cherokee Nation is concerned. I feel like there's a certain amount of status that comes with being a student, being an educated person, but I also feel that there are disadvantages in that sometimes community members may feel as if you're disconnected now because you're a part of this university machine. So it's sort of it's a double-edged sword, but I will say that I've never felt so close to my people as I do now. And I owe that in part to UCLA. Working with your own people is challenging because you're held accountable in a way that's very personal. But I was very fortunate to have been able to go to Cherokee Holiday this year, partly because of my involvement with Tsa-La-Gi Los Angeles, but also because of my value as an educated Cherokee. And a person who's doing this work that kind of bridges northeastern Oklahoma to Los Angeles, right? So, I was able to meet and connect with Cherokees back home and, go to Stomp Dance and Powwow and the Heritage Center. And not that these things weren't available to me before, but maybe I just didn't have the confidence or drive to reach out and sort of, actively participate in these things. Maybe I felt, maybe I felt that disconnect, or maybe, I'm 30 now also, so maybe it's kind of like this process of growing and learning. So yeah, I feel, and I also feel like I'm in a place because of the university where I'm able to take a step back and learn and view and understand tribal nations all over the world, and look at my own tribal government in a way that's critical and also constructive. So being able to actively participate in that process is again empowering, and I'm able to share that knowledge with not only my community but my family, and so I'm grateful for that space. I'm also, sometimes that space can be a little overwhelming because you feel like, you're a part of these two, here I am, I'm Cherokee, I'm always Cherokee. I was Cherokee before I was a student. I was Cherokee before I was a mother,
Right.
But what does that mean now? What does that mean now? And with the knowledge that I've acquired at the university, what am I going to do with that now? How can my people benefit from this? And not just my people, as in the urban community that I'm a part of, but my people as a whole, the 300,000 of us, that all have needs and that all, that all have concerns. And so, it's a very complicated identity to be both a student and a Cherokee citizen, but
Yeah.
a worthy one.
Sure. No, that's really good. And the big question is, what do I do now? And where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years when you're done with school? I mean, do you go into teaching? Are you going to continue to be a leader? And in what sense does that mean? Is that on a community level or a nationwide level?
Well, I certainly always hope to be both learning and teaching.
Sure.
Maybe not always in a way that's formal, but I certainly hope to continue to learn and to continue to be able to share whatever it is that I'm learning with my family and community. I feel like I'm obligated to do that. But I will be taking the LSAT this year, applying for law school this year.
Great.
And submitting my thesis in June. And so with that, I'm set on going to law school and being able to practice federal Indian law or American Indian law, depending on who's asking. So my plan is to hopefully be contracted by the Cherokee Nation to represent our tribe in matters of Indian child welfare here in California, because there are so many Cherokees here in California. Indian child welfare is something that's very near and dear to me, because I've witnessed community members and relatives really struggle in that process, in that system. And of course, we all, we're all, well, not all of us, but many of us in Indian country were watched in horror as the Scott Brown, Veronica Brown case sort of unraveled. And so I'd like to do whatever I can on the ground to prevent that from ever happening again. So I'd like to commit my life to that. And of course, I'd like to work, with the Cherokee Nation however I can, but I also want to live, here in California and work with California tribes whenever possible as well. So that's
Yeah.
my plan. And I am getting married soon, so I'll probably be married within the next year. We're sort of waiting to find out which law school I get into, hopefully, if any, right? Before making those plans. We're like, it's difficult to plan a wedding when we don't know where we'll live next year.
Sure. Well, congratulations, and is there anything else that you'd want to leave us with? I
just want to thank you, Brandon, for all that you do in the community. I mean, you're such an inspiration, and you motivate us to reach further and work harder and do more. And I think you're such a great example, and I hope to be able to kind of follow in your footsteps in terms of community leadership, because you really know what you're doing, and I'm so happy to rub elbows with you and Cherokee community, and you already are a leader in our community. So thank you.
I appreciate it. That's really nice. You have to say that. Okay, well, thank you, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And
awesome. Thanks, Brandon.
Awesome. All right, Emma. Well, have a great day, and thanks again. Okay, thanks for listening to another episode of Red Essay Season 2. I hope you enjoyed it. Big wado to Emma Snuggs for coming on and sharing what UCLA has to offer. And, I think it's just one of many universities across the country that us Native people can go to and have a very warm welcome and come out of there really learning a lot. So hope you enjoyed it, and have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.